There was a huge announcement in motorsports today in Indianapolis.
That's right, Jeff. Motorsports icon Roger Penske is acquiring Hulman Company, the parent of IndyCar and the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, which is home to both the Indianapolis 500 and NASCAR's Brickyard 400. The purchase ends the Hulman-George family's 74-year ownership of the historic Speedway. Here's what IMS Chairman Tony George and Roger Penske had to say at a press conference earlier today.
It was an important decision for our family, especially at this time. We've all grown up around it. Nancy and I, anyway, we came home from the hospital to a home just right down the street here. So we've literally grown up around it. Our kids and grandkids have done the same. So bittersweet, but very exciting for us because we know that we're passing the torch to an individual who has created an organization that is not only dynamic, but it's ideally suited, I think, to take over this stewardship. I approached him at the final race of the season, not wanting to distract from the task at hand, which was bringing home another championship, but I wanted to wish him well on the grid, and I just simply said that I'd like to meet with him and talk about stewardship.
Today, I hope my dad's looking down at me and looking at this group and say, son, you did a good job. I don't want to leave this conversation without knowing that I understand the integrity, and there's got to be a bright line, and to me, I know what my job is, and hopefully I've got enough credibility with everyone that we can be sure that that is not a conflict, and I'll do my very best to be sure that isn't. And if you think it is, I hope that I know that you folks will tell me pretty quick, so I've got a lot of guys watching me.
Well, what a huge day for the sport, a huge day for their companies and their employees, but for motorsports in general, for Roger Penske to take over what they're referring to as a stewardship, right? It's not just a business acquisition, it's taking over the history and the heritage of Indianapolis and Indianapolis Motor Speedway. Huge day.
Yeah, you look at Indy, and Indy is the George family, okay, the Hulmans, and that's what it is. But it's also Roger Penske. So it's just a passing of that torch. And it's funny how these two families and the relationship has gone from being a fan there for Roger to coming and bringing cars there, being a competitor against the IRL, which Tony George and those guys were instrumental in crushing in some way CART and what Penske and those guys. But the respect factor, and I think it showed on at the podium today, the respect that those families have for each other.
Yeah, and Roger Penske, as you said, Kyle, is synonymous with the Indianapolis 500. He's owned speedways before. He owned Michigan. He built Fontana. But this is different. This is a guy who's won 18 Indy 500s at this track, and I think that's why you heard him say in that soundbite that we heard that, hey, there's obviously going to be a lot of focus on this. How is this going to work when I am the most successful team owner in this series? And now not only do I own the world's most famous racetrack where the signature event of IndyCar happens every year, the Indy 500, I also own the series, which my team just won the championship in and has dominated for the better part of a half century.
Roger's perspective is so unique in the sport. He is this incredible business person that's respected around the world, not just here nationally, but around the world. In addition to that, he is a multi-time Indy 500 car owner champion. He is a NASCAR champion. He is a IndyCar champion. He has this perspective that I think will be extremely healthy, not just for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway, not just for IndyCar, but all the motorsports.
Yes.
Because the perspective that he has, understanding the importance of corporate involvement, understanding the importance of the fans, understanding all of the things that it takes to make racetracks work. As you said, he's owned racetracks. He's owned teams. He's been a driver. I can't imagine that there's a better person to have an impact on this sport than Roger Penske.
I don't think there's a job in motorsports that Roger Penske hasn't had at some point in time. You know what I mean? If you go back to the very beginning of time in his career of working on his own cars, driving his own cars, owning tracks, owning series, owning all this stuff, look, it is just a motorsports in this country, and we're NASCAR guys, but motorsports, when people think of motorsports in the United States, they think Indianapolis. And from the iconic Speedway to the iconic Roger Penske to be able to continue that. It is a huge day for motorsports in this country, I think.
Roger Penske touches all forms of motorsports.
all
and
forms.
so his call list today, I mean, he talked to every team owner in the IndyCar series. Last night, he called Jim France. I can imagine who else was on that list of people he called last night. Jim France put out a statement today from NASCAR. Obviously, it's been universally well received because, as you guys just talked about, he is universally respected across all forms of motorsports: IndyCar, IMSA, NASCAR, V8 supercars in Australia, everywhere.
And what's amazing about him, as big as he is, when you walk up to him, how you doing? You know what I mean? He's just a good guy on top of everything else.
That's the best part about Roger Penske.
Hey Motorsports fans, thanks for watching. Make sure you hit subscribe before you go for all the latest news and highlights across motorsports.